So this isn't necessarily for content, but I might post it later. I suppose I'm looking for a way to express myself. Like, it's not that there aren't people that I can't express myself to, but I feel this almost sort of tension to be a particular way and not say things that are too inappropriate despite the absolute absurd nature of like what goes on in my head. It's not that the thoughts are particularly unsettling, but it's weirdly easy to make things awkward, especially when you might have this subtly profound thing floating around and then something akin to like a Looney Tunes cartoon on acid pop up halfway through that is just as interesting, right? It's not ADHD, but it's this random thing that feels right. But digressing, I want to try a different way of recording and communicating those things more or less for myself, but also in a sense to feel like semi-validated in that I can be a certain way without necessarily being judgment that comes my way in a socially repercussive manner. And part of me wants to be funny, and I think a lot of things are funny when they probably shouldn't be. And there's this aspect of like expression where I would want everything to be funny, but that's just not how I am most of the time. Or it's really hard to be funny, right? To say something that like, oh, that tickles the right spot there, right? For me, I don't know if that's like the vibe that I consider most of the time. I think the things that are funny are the things that most people find entertaining and why, or why people are engaged with certain aspects. And I can't quite put my finger on it. It's not particularly important, nor is it the thing that is on my mind most of the time. I think usually it's the aspect of, for example, with stand up, just getting in front of people and talking about things that are strange, awkward, or even sometimes taboo, um, and have it be somewhat accepted. However, there's definitely a lot of tact and practice that goes into making something that more or less lands with an audience. Um, everything from presentation to how the joke or story, et cetera, is crafted. But nonetheless, if I were to digress into something that's more akin to what's going on in my mind is like these aspects of relationships. Um, One weird thing that I've been reading about lately and kind of not making my own, but seeing where I might fit into it are these things called queer platonic relationships. Um, they're said to like blend the barrier between what is romantic, platonic, and traditional. They're typically untraditional. Uh, and it seems like a relationship that is just honestly non-standard, but it's really hard to conceive of one that's like healthy and consistent. Uh, Hence, I guess maybe the name of why it's a queer or a strange relationship. I like it. I like the sound of quasi platonic, which is also used, but the aspect is usually, I suppose, people expressing themselves in ways that, well, aren't traditional, right? And the aspect that I find the most interesting is being able to express intimacy without necessarily a sexual nature. Um, but for me, it's also pushing those boundaries of like what is intimate, what is sexual, and what is um, not necessarily appropriate, but what is pushing the boundaries people put without breaking them in a safe and healthy manner. And that's a very hard thing to do when thinking about like the general person. I have got it down to like for what I think is not an ideal, but like the ground essential for what a quasi a quasi platonic relationship might look like. And I read it and I'm like, this is not so strange. It's just kind of insane. Like no one thinks this way, or no one typically thinks this way, or maybe there are aspects about it that people enjoy or want, but aren't necessarily emotionally able or experientially open enough to explore or try. But there are things that are like the qualities of like something that's like very open, uh, and almost experimental. Um, like anything goes. Like as long as you're not like hurting the other person. Like I could go up to you and say like I love you and like not mean it in the slightest. And like and you know like the other flip side of that is like being able to say that and like having there be no judgment and or even need for reciprocation. Like it could just completely land flat and that's okay. And like there's no pressure in that. And it's not to like devalue the statement like I love you, but it's this idea that it does and doesn't have so much importance, and being able to practice it in a almost like lab or experimental setting makes it seem able to explore aspects of the nature of that thing uh, that aren't typical. And so that's like one aspect that's interesting. I think intensity, right? You read about it and you see it in all this media. Like people are like in love, and like it's a very strong love. It's a very intense type of love. And for me, that aspect would seem important, and it does, or having that. But there's a problem where it's like typically, like even in like whether it's like longer term marriages or even just any relationship, like some people struggle with maintaining like that feeling. Like I feel like a lot of people cheat on each other and like fuck around because that initial feeling when you're initially courting or when you initially met, it can't be matched or it's just not the same as it was. I personally don't have much of a problem. I'm so easily satisfied and entertained by most things that like I could eat the same like bowl of ramen or like Domino's pizza every day and it not get old. But I feel like people aren't like that, and I don't know if it's because they lack complexity or awareness or just good nature and decency. But I think that aspect of being able to say one day that like imagine like this, like one day like you wake up with whoever you're like committed to, but like that commitment is loose enough where you're like, oh, you know what, today can we act like we're engaged? And then like the next day you wake up like I just wanna be your friend today. And then the next day you're feeling like, can we just be like boyfriend and girlfriend, but like act like we just met each other, like we just started dating. Like no one does that. No one wants to do that, right? Like I do, but like finding a sane and like aesthetically attractive human being, or maybe not sane, but open. There we go. I could care less if you mental illness, no mental illness. diagnosed, undiagnosed, whatever you're rocking. Like, maybe that's a personal problem. But then I'm not the only one that's into like crazy chicks. And so yeah, yeah, that's like two things, and there's like six of them, and I don't even remember them like offhand. Like I like wrote a short list, and then I shoved it into an AI to coax it to say something. I'm like, is this like stuck in my head? Am I just like thinking of something, like hallucinating, like a meaning? And I like coaxed the robot into being able to say like something that was like cohesive and like 90% in the ballpark, like I was talking about. The rest was just like 10%. Like, I don't know if this is okay to say, which like maybe 5% is making it into what I'm saying now. So, we're 95% of the way there, whatever that means. Um, but yeah, uh, I could talk about the rest of it. I probably will in a different video, but I'm interested to see uh, what other people might think. Um, yeah, as well as give my time to like meditate on what I'm doing, and how I'm expressing and how I'm engaging with other people, because I think about that a lot and I worry about it a lot. I don't know if I should, yeah, but I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad thing as long as that overthinking doesn't cause negative effects on one's mental health. But yeah, if you're watching this, and I did decide to post it, um, I'm okay. I promise. I'm a little unhinged. There's some stuff going on in here that isn't always normal, but I don't wish to really speak about that in this setting. Nor do I think it's necessary. Uh, and then I also want to say, why don't you talk to me? I'm like yelling into the void right now, and I'm hurt. No, I'm not hurt at all. I could give less two shits than four, than five. I don't know. It doesn't matter. And so, yeah, it felt good.